The champagne flute slipped from my fingers and shattered against the marble floor of the Riverside Country Club. Crystal fragments scattered across my designer heels as my brother Marcus's words echoed through the crowded reception hall. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. Grace? Successful? Come on, Dad. She's practically broke, living in that tiny apartment, driving a 10-year-old Honda. I make more in a month than she sees all year. The laughter that followed felt like acid in my veins. I stood frozen behind the decorative pillar, watching my entire extended family nod in agreement. My cousin Jennifer actually snorted wine through her nose. Uncle Robert patted Marcus on the back like he'd just delivered the punchline of the century. But it was my father's reaction that cut deepest. He didn't defend me. He didn't even look uncomfortable. He just smiled that same proud smile he'd worn when Marcus graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Business School. The same one he'd flashed when Marcus bought his first Porsche, the same expression that had been notably absent during my own achievements. Well, Dad said, raising his glass, at least one of my children knows how to make real money. I pressed my back against the cold pillar, my heart hammering so loud I was sure the entire wedding reception could hear it. This was supposed to be my cousin Sarah's special day, but somehow it had turned into another episode of The Marcus Wheeler Show, starring my golden boy brother and his endless parade of accomplishments. My phone buzzed against my clutch. Unknown number. Don't let them see you cry. Meet me in the East parking lot in 5 minutes. You'll want to hear what I have to say about your brother's success. I stared at the message, my hands trembling slightly. Who could possibly know I was here? More importantly, who knew enough about Marcus to text me cryptically at a family wedding? Another message appeared immediately. Trust me, Grace, what you're about to learn will change everything. The rational part of my mind screamed danger. Meeting strangers in parking lots wasn't exactly Harvard Business School strategy. But the humiliated part of me, the part that had just watched my own family laugh at my supposed failures, was curious enough to risk it. I slipped away from the reception, weaving through clusters of relatives who barely acknowledged my existence. In their eyes, I was just Grace, the struggling freelance graphic designer who couldn't afford to contribute much to family gift funds. The disappointment, the one who chose passion over practicality, as my mother loved to remind everyone. The October air bit through my dress as I stepped into the East parking lot. A figure emerged from behind a black sedan, and my breath caught. It was Amanda Chen, Marcus's ex-girlfriend from college. The one who disappeared from his life 3 years ago without explanation, leaving behind only whispered rumors and Marcus's month-long sulking period. Marcus, I approached cautiously, what are you doing here? How did you even know I'd be at this wedding? She looked different. Gone was the bubbly sorority girl I remembered from Marcus's graduation party. This Amanda had sharp eyes and a calculating expression that reminded me uncomfortably of my brother. I've been keeping tabs on your family, Grace, specifically on Marcus. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. Do you know what this is? It was a screenshot of what looked like a bank statement. The numbers were blurry, but I could make out Marcus's name at the top and a balance that made my stomach drop. Negative $847,000. That's impossible, I whispered. Marcus just bought a new Tesla last month. He's been talking about investing in some tech startup. He can't be broke. Amanda's smile was cold. Oh, Grace, your perfect brother is drowning in debt. Credit cards, private loans, even money borrowed against his trust fund that doesn't actually exist yet. He's been living on fumes and borrowed time for over 2 years. I felt the world tilt slightly. But his job at Morrison & Associates? He was fired 8 months ago for embezzling client funds. The only reason he's not in prison is because his buddy Jake Morrison covered for him, in exchange for Marcus signing over his car, his condo, and basically his entire future. The pieces started clicking together like a horrifying puzzle. Marcus's recent mood swings, the way he'd been avoiding family dinners, his sudden interest in networking events and investment opportunities. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Amanda's expression softened slightly. Because I know what it's like to be in your shoes. I spent 3 years watching Marcus treat everyone around him like they were beneath him, including me. When I finally discovered the truth about his finances, I tried to help him. You know what he did? He stole $12,000 from my savings account and told everyone I was psycho when I confronted him. My legs felt weak. I leaned against a nearby car, processing this information. So you want what? Revenge? I want justice, and I think you do too, after what just happened there. She gestured toward the country club. But here's the thing, Grace. I've done my research on you too. She pulled out another phone, this one showing what looked like financial documents. Wheeler Design Solutions, LLC. Your freelance business that you've been downplaying to your family? Last year's revenue? $340,000. Your investment portfolio that you keep in your grandmother's maiden name? Current value? $1.2 million. The tiny apartment you live in? You own the entire building. My mouth fell open. How could she possibly know all this? You're not broke, Grace. You're the opposite of broke. You're just quiet about it. Smart, actually, given your family's tendency to treat money like a competition sport. She was right. I'd learned early to downplay my success around my family. Every time I'd share good news, Marcus found a way to one-up me. When I got my first big client, he announced his promotion. When I bought my building, he bought his Porsche. It became easier to just not share. So what do you want from me? I asked. Amanda's smile returned, sharper than before. I want to give you an opportunity. In 3 weeks, it's your parents' 40th anniversary party. The whole family will be there, plus all their friends, business associates, everyone who matters in your parents' social circle. And that's when Marcus plans to announce his engagement. You know, the pharmaceutical heiress. He's going to propose at your party, steal the spotlight completely, and use her family's money to dig himself out of his hole. I felt sick. Jessica has no idea about his debts. None. He's been feeding her the same lines about his successful consulting business that he feeds your family. But here's where it gets interesting. Amanda leaned closer. Jessica's father is very particular about background checks. If someone were to anonymously tip him off about Marcus's real financial situation before the engagement announcement, the engagement would be off, I finished. More than that, the Hardwells don't just dump people quietly, they destroy them. Public humiliation, legal action if warranted, complete social exile from their circles. Marcus would lose everything, including what little credibility he has left. I stared at her, my mind racing. Why don't you do it yourself? Because it would look like a jealous ex-girlfriend seeking revenge. But you're his sister. If you wanted to protect an innocent woman from making a terrible mistake, she shrugged, that's just family looking out for family. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. The wind picked up, sending leaves skittering across the parking lot. Inside the country club, I could hear the band starting up, probably getting ready for the father-daughter dance. My father, who just stood by while his son publicly humiliated his daughter. There's something else, Amanda said quietly. Marcus has been telling people that you borrowed money from him last year, that you're basically dependent on his generosity to keep your business afloat. The rage that shot through me was so sudden and fierce that I actually took a step backward. He what? Oh, yes. According to Marcus, Grace Wheeler is a charity case that he supports out of the goodness of his heart. That's why everyone was laughing so hard in there. They think your poverty is already common knowledge. I closed my eyes, trying to process the full scope of my brother's lies. Not only was he drowning in debt while mocking my supposed financial failures, but he was actively spreading rumors to make himself look generous and me look pathetic. You said I have 3 weeks until the anniversary party. Amanda nodded. 3 weeks to decide what kind of sister you want to be. The kind who stays quiet and lets lies spread, or the kind who protects innocent people from predators. She handed me a business card with only a phone number on it. When you're ready to discuss details, call me. But Grace, she paused, her hand on her car door, don't wait too long. Jessica's not the only one Marcus is lying to, and the longer this goes on, the more people get hurt. As her sedan pulled away, I stood alone in the parking lot, the country club's warm glow spilling across the asphalt behind me. Inside, my family was probably still laughing about my failures. Marcus was probably basking in another round of praise for his non-existent success. But now I know the truth. And the truth, as they say, had a way of setting people free, even if it destroyed them first. I spent the next 3 days doing what I do best, research. If Marcus thought he could build his reputation on lies about my failures, he was about to learn that his quiet little sister had some investigative skills he'd never bothered to notice. My first stop was the Cook County Public Records Office. $23.40 later, I had copies of every financial document Marcus had filed in the past 5 years. Property liens, court judgments, business registrations that had been dissolved within months. The pattern was clear. My brother wasn't just bad with money, he was spectacularly, almost artistically terrible with it. The Morrison and Associates firing that Amanda mentioned, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Marcus had been fired from 3 different firms in the past 4 years, each time for increasingly serious infractions. The first was performance issues, the second was client relationship problems, the third was embezzlement. But here's what bothered me most. Despite all this public information being available, our parents had no clue. They still bragged about Marcus's consulting success to their friends. They still asked him for financial advice at family dinners. Either they were willfully blind, or Marcus was a better actor than I'd given him credit for. I decided to test a theory. That Thursday, I drove to Lincoln Park, where Marcus supposedly lived in a luxury condo. The building was impressive enough, glass and steel reaching toward the clouds, a doorman in a crisp uniform, the kind of place that screamed, "I've made it." But when I asked the doorman about Marcus Wheeler and 4B, his face went blank. "Sir, we don't have any residents by that name." "Are you sure? Tall guy, brown hair, drives a white Tesla?" The doorman's expression shifted to something between annoyance and pity. "Oh, you mean Mark? Yeah, he comes around sometimes, but he doesn't live here. That unit belongs to Mr. Peterson." Mark. Marcus had been using a fake name. I thanked the doorman and walked around the block, my mind spinning. If Marcus didn't live where he claimed, where was he actually staying? And why keep lying to the family when it would be so easy to verify? My phone rang as I reached my car. Unknown number again. "Having fun playing detective?" Amanda's voice was amused. "How did you—" "I told you, I've been keeping tabs on your family. I saw you at the records office this morning, and I had a feeling you'd end up at the Lincoln Park building eventually." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October wind. "You're following me?" "Relax, Grace. I'm not stalking you. I'm protecting my investment." "What investment?" There was a pause. "We'll get to that. Right now, I want to show you something that'll interest you more than property records. Meet me at Millennium Park in an hour, the Crown Fountain." "Amanda, I don't think—" "Your brother is meeting Jessica there in 2 hours for what she thinks is a romantic afternoon. You might want to see how he handles romance when he thinks nobody's watching." The line went dead. I should have gone home, should have ignored Amanda's cryptic messages and focused on my own life. But the image of my family laughing at my supposed poverty kept replaying in my mind, mixed with the growing realization that everything I'd believed about Marcus was a carefully constructed lie. An hour later, I found Amanda sitting on a bench near the Crown Fountain, wearing oversized sunglasses, a navy peacoat that made her look like she was auditioning for a spy movie. "You came," she said without looking up from her phone. I'm starting to think this was a mistake. Trust me, it wasn't. She patted the bench beside her. "Sit. Your brother should be here in about 15 minutes, and you're going to want a good view." As if on cue, I spotted Marcus walking across the plaza. But something was wrong with the picture. Instead of his usual confident stride, he was checking his phone obsessively, glancing around like he was afraid of being followed. When he sat down on a bench across from us, I could see tension in every line of his body. "He's nervous," I observed. "He should be. Jessica's father hired a private investigator last week to do a background check. Marcus doesn't know yet, but the report comes back tomorrow." My stomach dropped. "You didn't?" "I didn't have to. Richard Hartwell is paranoid about gold diggers. He runs background checks on everyone who gets close to his daughter. Marcus sealed his own fate the moment he started dating her." I watched my brother pace back and forth, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then Jessica appeared, practically glowing with happiness, carrying a small wrapped package. She threw her arms around Marcus, and even from our distance, I could see the forced nature of his smile. "Watch his hands," murmured. Marcus's hands were shaking as he took the package. When he opened it to reveal what looked like expensive cufflinks, his smile became even more strained. "He can't afford to reciprocate," Amanda explained. "Jessica's been giving him gifts for months. Watches, clothes, gadgets. He can't keep up, but he also can't admit it without blowing his cover." As if to prove her point, Marcus pulled out a small box from his jacket. From Jessica's delighted squeals, it was clearly jewelry. But I noticed something odd about Marcus's posture when he handed it over. The slight hunch of someone expecting to be caught in a lie. "Fake," Amanda said simply. "How can you tell?"
Because I helped him buy it. Not the real thing, obviously. A very convincing replica he ordered online for $60. Jessica thinks it's a $3,000 necklace from Tiffany. I stared at my brother, watching him lie effortlessly to a woman who clearly adored him. How many people is he deceiving? Everyone. Your parents think he's successful. Jessica thinks he's wealthy. His creditors think he's going to pay them back eventually. Even his old college friends think he's doing consulting work when really he's been driving for Uber at night to make rent. Uber? Amanda pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. It was from a rideshare app, showing a driver profile for Mark W. with Marcus's photo. 4.7-star rating. Apparently, he's quite the conversationalist. Probably because he gets to practice his fake successful businessman routine on strangers every night. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Every family dinner where Marcus had dismissed my career. Every time he'd make jokes about my tiny apartment while living where exactly? Where does he actually live? I asked. Studio apartment in Wicker Park, $800 a month, paid for mostly with credit card cash advances. Want to see it? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed, a text from my mother. "Family dinner Sunday. Marcus says he has big news to share. So excited." "The engagement announcement," Amanda said, reading over my shoulder. "He's moving up his timeline. The private investigator's report must have spooked him." I watched Marcus and Jessica walking away hand in hand, her head on his shoulder, completely trusting. For all his faults, my brother was about to destroy an innocent woman's life to save his own reputation. "Amanda," I said slowly, "what exactly do you want from me?" She turned to face me fully. "I want you to beat him at his own game." Meaning? Marcus has built his entire identity around being the successful Wheeler child. He's made you the family disappointment to make himself look better. But you have something he doesn't. Actual money, actual success, and actual power to change the narrative. I felt a flutter of something dangerous in my chest. "Go on." "What if, instead of exposing him quietly, you did something bigger, something that would not only save Jessica, but show your entire family who the real success story is?" "Like what?" Amanda's smile was as sharp as winter. "Like paying off all his debts, publicly, at your parents' anniversary party, in front of everyone who laughed at you last week." The idea hit me like lightning. That would humiliate him completely. More than that, it would establish you as the family's real success story, the generous sister who saved her brother from financial ruin. Marcus would have to spend the rest of his life being grateful to the sister he called broke. I thought about it, the poetry of it. Marcus, who had spent years making me feel small, suddenly owing his entire financial life to my generosity. Never again able to mock my success because everyone would know exactly who had the real money in the family. How much debt are we talking about? I asked. Total? Around 900,000. I know it sounds like a lot, but given your portfolio, it's manageable, I finished. And it was. Painful, but manageable. The beautiful part is, Amanda continued, you wouldn't just be getting revenge. You'd be doing the right thing. Saving Jessica from a marriage built on lies. Protecting your family from embarrassment when Marcus inevitably crashes and burns. You'd be the hero of the story. I watched a family of tourists taking selfies by the fountain, all smiles and genuine happiness. When was the last time my family had looked at me like that? When had Marcus ever shown me an ounce of the respect he demanded from everyone else? I need to know more, I said finally, about his debts, about his lies, about everything. If I'm going to do this, I need to understand exactly what I'm dealing with. Amanda's smile widened. Now you're talking. I have files, Grace. Detailed financial records, screenshots of his dating profiles where he lies about his income, even recordings of him bragging about how easy it is to fool the family. Recordings? Marcus likes to talk when he drinks, and he drinks a lot these days. She stood up, adjusting her coat. But that's a conversation for tomorrow. Tonight, I want you to go home and think about what kind of person you want to be. The sister who stays quiet and lets lies spread, or the sister who rewrites the entire story. As she walked away, I remained on the bench, staring at the spot where Marcus and Jessica had been standing. Tomorrow, Jessica's father would get a report that would end their relationship and destroy my brother's last chance at financial salvation. Unless I stepped in first. Unless I became the author of Marcus's fate instead of just a victim of his lies. The fountain sprayed water into the Chicago sky, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had real power in my family's story. Amanda's files turned out to be 3 banker's boxes full of documents, photographs, and USB drives containing enough evidence to prosecute Marcus for fraud in multiple states. We met at a storage unit in Schaumburg, and when she rolled up the metal door, I felt like I was entering the headquarters of a very personal FBI investigation. Jesus, Amanda, how long have you been collecting all this? Since the day he stole my savings. She pulled on latex gloves and handed me a pair. Once I realized what Marcus really was, I decided to document everything. Initially for my own protection, but then I discovered something that changed the scope entirely. She led me to a folding table covered with financial statements, bank records, and what looked like corporate documents. Your brother isn't just a liar and a thief, Grace. He's been running elaborate cons for years. Jessica isn't his first wealthy girlfriend, and you're not his first family member he's exploited. My blood went cold. What do you mean, exploited? Amanda pulled out a thick folder labeled Trust Fund Applications. Remember when your grandmother died 5 years ago? The inheritance that was supposed to be split between you and Marcus? We each got $50,000. Marcus said he invested in some tech startup that didn't pan out. Check this out. She showed me a bank statement dated from that time. Marcus received his $50,000, just like you. But he also applied for an early disbursement from your trust fund, claiming financial hardship and family emergency. He forged your signature on the application. I stared at the document, my own signature perfectly replicated at the bottom. He stole from my inheritance? $75,000. The trust administrator approved it because the signature looked authentic, and Marcus provided fake medical bills claiming you needed money for cancer treatment. The room seemed to spin. Cancer treatment? Complete fabrication. But it gets worse. Amanda pulled out another file. He's been doing this systematically. Remember your cousin David's wedding fund that mysteriously disappeared? Marcus was the family member who offered to help manage the collection. She showed me bank records proving nearly $20,000 from family wedding contributions into his own accounts. And the charity fundraiser your mother organized for the Children's Hospital last year, Marcus was in charge of collecting corporate donations. No, I felt sick. How much? $38,000 that never made it to the hospital. Your mother still doesn't know. She thinks the corporate sponsors backed out. I sat down heavily on a folding chair, trying to process the scope of my brother's betrayal. This wasn't just about lying to girlfriends or family dinners. Marcus had been systematically stealing from our family for years. Why didn't you go to the police?
Because initially, I only knew about what he did to me, and a woman claiming her ex-boyfriend stole money doesn't carry much weight, especially when he's charming and well-connected. But once I started digging deeper, I realized this was bigger than petty theft. This was organized financial fraud targeting vulnerable people who trusted him. Amanda pulled out her laptop and opened a video file. But the real revelation came last month when I followed him to a meeting I thought was about his fake consulting business. The video showed Marcus sitting in an upscale restaurant with two older men I didn't recognize. The audio was surprisingly clear. The inheritance scam worked perfectly, Marcus was saying, gesturing with his wine glass. Family members never check the paperwork closely, especially when you hit them with medical emergency sob stories. I've pulled it 3 times now with different relatives. One of the men laughed. And they still invite you to family dinners? They worship me. As far as they know, I'm the successful one, while my loser sister barely scrapes by. The more pathetic they think she is, the more impressive my fake success looks in comparison. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. He's bragging about it. It gets worse. Keep watching. On screen, Marcus leaned forward conspiratorially. The best part is, I'm about to close the biggest score yet. My parents' anniversary party is in a few weeks, and I'm announcing my engagement to Jessica Hartwell. Once we're married, I'll have access to her trust fund, plus her father's business connections. I figure I can drain about $500,000 before anyone catches on. What about the girlfriend? Won't she notice? Marcus shrugged. Rich girls are stupid about money. They never look at the actual numbers. By the time she figures it out, I'll have enough to disappear and start over somewhere else. The video ended with the 3 men toasting to successful ventures. I sat in stunned silence, the full horror of my brother's plans washing over me. He wasn't just planning to deceive Jessica into marriage. He was planning to rob her and abandon her once he'd taken everything he could. Who are those men? I asked quietly. Professional con artists. Marcus has been taking lessons, essentially, learning how to run more sophisticated scams. Amanda closed the laptop. That's when I knew I couldn't handle this alone. Marcus isn't just a family embarrassment anymore. He's become genuinely dangerous. I stood up and paced around the storage unit, my mind reeling. So, when you approached me at the wedding, I needed someone with the resources and motivation to stop him, someone who understood the family dynamics and had enough money to actually make a difference. She gestured to the boxes of evidence. I could expose him, but that would just make him disappear and start over somewhere else. Someone like you, though, someone with both personal stakes and financial power, could actually end this. By paying off his debts? And humiliating him publicly. That was just the opening gambit, Grace. What I'm really offering you is the chance to completely destroy his ability to hurt anyone ever again. She pulled out one final folder, thicker than all the others. I've been in contact with his other victims, 3 ex-girlfriends who lost money, 2 business partners he screwed over, and 4 family members from his ex-wife's side who were also targeted. Ex-wife? I stared at her. Marcus was never married. Oh, but he was. For 18 months, to a woman named Rebecca Torres in Phoenix. He used the same playbook: fake success, emotional manipulation, financial fraud. He emptied her savings account and disappeared one night, leaving her with $30,000 in credit card debt he'd racked up in her name. Amanda handed me a photograph. It showed Marcus in a tuxedo, standing next to a beautiful Latina woman in a wedding dress. They looked happy, normal, nothing like the predator I was discovering my brother to be. Rebecca's been tracking him ever since. She's the one who tipped me off about the inheritance scams. Together, we've built a comprehensive case that goes back 7 years and involves fraud in 4 different states. 7 years, I repeated numbly. He's been doing this for 7 years. At least. But here's the beautiful part, Grace. We can end it all. Not just stop him from hurting Jessica, but make sure he never has the opportunity to hurt anyone else again. How? Amanda's smile was cold and satisfied. We're going to give him everything he's ever wanted: success, recognition, family approval. We're going to make him the center of attention at your parents' anniversary party. And then we're going to systematically destroy every lie he's built on in front of everyone who matters to him. That's more than revenge. That's justice, real justice. Marcus has spent years making victims out of people who trusted him. He's stolen money, destroyed relationships, and built his entire identity on the pain of others. It's time someone returned the favor. I looked around the storage unit at the mountains of evidence Amanda had collected: bank statements, photographs, recorded conversations, legal documents. It represented years of Marcus's crimes, but also years of Amanda's obsession with stopping him. Amanda, I said slowly, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. How far are you willing to go with this? Because what you're describing isn't just public humiliation. You're talking about completely destroying my brother's life. She was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Grace, your brother stole money from a children's hospital. He forged your signature to steal from your inheritance. He's planning to marry a woman just so he can rob her and abandon her once he'd taken everything he could. What would you need from me? Asked. Money, obviously, but more than that, I need you to be the public face of his downfall. I'm just a jilted ex-girlfriend. You're his sister, his family. When you expose him, people will listen. When you cut him off, it'll matter. She pulled out a timeline written on a whiteboard. The anniversary party is in 12 days. Jessica's father gets the private investigator's report tomorrow, which means Marcus will be desperate. Perfect timing for you to swoop in as the generous sister who saves the day. And then we spring the trap. In front of your entire family, all their friends, and everyone who's ever believed Marcus's lies, we show them exactly who he really is. Not just a liar, but a thief. Not just irresponsible, but criminal. I stared at the timeline, imagining the scene. My parents' faces when they learned the truth. The devastation in Marcus's eyes when he realized his entire world was collapsing. The satisfaction of finally being the Wheeler child who mattered. I need one night to think about it.
Amanda nodded. That's fair. But Grace, don't take too long. Every day we wait is another day Marcus spends planning how to destroy Jessica's life. And based on what I've learned about his escalating behavior, she might not be the only one in danger. As I drove home through Chicago traffic, Amanda's words echoed in my mind. Marcus wasn't just the golden boy who made me feel small anymore. He was a predator, a criminal, a man who had built his entire life on the suffering of people who loved him. For the first time since this all began, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about justice. And justice, I was beginning to realize, might require me to become someone I'd never imagined I could be. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, drawing diagrams of relationships, money flows, and potential consequences. By dawn, I had filled 17 pages with plans, contingencies, and what my business school professors would have called a comprehensive strategic analysis. At 7 a.m., I called my financial advisor. Grace, it's early, even for you. Daniel, I need to liquidate some assets quickly. How fast can you free up $1 million without triggering tax penalties? There was a pause. $1 million? Grace, what's going on? Is everything okay? Family emergency. I need the money liquid within a week. Okay, I can make that work. We'll take it from your municipal bonds and the tech stock position. But Grace, are you sure? I'm sure. Send me the paperwork today. My next call was to Rebecca Torres in Phoenix. Amanda had given me her number, and when she answered, her voice carried the weariness of someone who'd been fighting a long battle. Amanda said you might call. You're Marcus's sister? I am, and I want to help stop him.
Good, because I've got news that might change your timeline. Marcus called me yesterday. My stomach dropped. He called you? Why? He wants to meet, says he has a business proposition that could make us both rich. I think he's gotten desperate enough to try running cons on his old victims. I felt the pieces clicking into place. He's planning to use you somehow in the Jessica scheme. That's my guess. He probably figures I'm still bitter enough to help him hurt another rich woman. What he doesn't know is that I've been preparing for this moment for 3 years. What do you mean? I mean, I've been building my own case against him. Financial records, witness statements, even video evidence of him confessing to theft. I was waiting for the right moment to strike, and it sounds like that moment just arrived. We talked for an hour, and by the end of the conversation, I had a much clearer picture of what Marcus was truly capable of. Rebecca's story was heartbreaking, but also illuminating. Marcus hadn't just stolen her money, he'd systematically isolated her from friends and family, convinced her that her instincts were wrong, and made her doubt her own sanity. The worst part, Rebecca said, wasn't the money. It was how he made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting him, like I was paranoid and jealous and unstable. Even after I found the evidence, I spent months wondering if somehow it was my fault. That resonated with something deep in my chest. How many times had Marcus made me feel like my problems with him were just my own insecurity? How many family gatherings had I left wondering if I was being too sensitive? Rebecca, how would you feel about helping us expose him publicly? I've been waiting 3 years for someone to ask me that question. My third call was to my lawyer, Patricia Hendricks. I'd worked with her on business contracts before, but I'd never asked her about criminal law. Hypothetically, I began, if someone had evidence of multiple counts of fraud, theft, and identity theft, what would be the best way to ensure justice was served? Hypothetically, turn everything over to the FBI. Financial crimes across state lines are federal jurisdiction. And how long would that take? Years, maybe never, depending on the evidence quality and the defendant's resources. Why do you ask? I explained the situation, and Patricia was quiet for a long time. Grace, I have to advise against taking any action that could be construed as vigilante justice. If you have evidence of crimes, the proper channels will take years, and in the meantime, he'll hurt more people. I understand your frustration, but, Patricia, what if there was a way to stop him immediately while also gathering enough evidence to ensure criminal prosecution? What if we could protect his next victim and build an airtight case at the same time? Another long pause. What exactly are you planning? I outlined Amanda's strategy, emphasizing the protection of Jessica and the documentation of evidence. Patricia listened without interrupting. It's legally risky, she said finally, but if you're careful about how you handle the evidence and you involve law enforcement at the right moment, it could work. You'd need to be very, very careful about entrapment laws. Would you be willing to advise us, unofficially? Send me what you have. Let me review the evidence and the plan. I'll tell you if you're heading toward legal trouble. By noon, I had assembled what felt like a war council. Amanda, Rebecca via video call, and Patricia via encrypted email. We spent the afternoon building what Amanda called Operation Golden Boy, a comprehensive plan to expose Marcus while protecting his victims and gathering evidence for criminal prosecution. The plan had 3 phases. Phase 1, the rescue. I would approach Marcus as the loving sister who'd learned about his financial troubles. I'd offer to pay off his debts publicly at the anniversary party, positioning myself as the family savior. This would prevent him from marrying Jessica for her money while establishing my financial superiority. Phase 2, the documentation. While Marcus was dealing with the humiliation of being rescued by his supposedly broke sister, we would systematically document his crimes. Rebecca would wear a wire to her meeting with him. Amanda would gather additional evidence from his business associates. I would record any conversations where he admitted to illegal activity. Phase 3, the reckoning. At a second family gathering, my mother's birthday party the following month, we would present all evidence of Marcus's crimes to the family simultaneously with turning it over to federal authorities.
This would ensure he couldn't manipulate the narrative or disappear before facing justice. It's ambitious, Patricia admitted during our evening conference call, but it addresses my legal concerns. You're not entrapping him, you're just documenting crimes he's already committed. And by involving multiple victims and federal authorities, you're ensuring proper prosecution. What about the risks? I asked. The biggest risk is that Marcus figures out what you're doing and disappears. Men like this often have escape plans. Amanda spoke up. That's why the timeline is so tight. We hit him fast before he has time to think.
There's another risk, Rebecca added quietly. Marcus doesn't like losing. When he feels cornered, he gets dangerous. I'm not talking about physical violence, but he'll try to destroy anyone he sees as a threat. What do you mean? He'll spread lies, file false reports, and try to turn people against you. When I first confronted him about the theft, he told mutual friends I was stalking him. He filed a restraining order full of lies, claiming I was harassing him and making threats. It took months to clear my name. That gave me pause. If Marcus decided I was an enemy, he'd use every weapon in his arsenal against me. My business, my reputation, my relationships with our parents, everything would become a target. Are you sure you want to do this? Amanda asked. Because once we start, there's no going back. Marcus will never forgive you, and your family dynamics will never be the same. I thought about the video of Marcus bragging about his scams, about Jessica, trusting and vulnerable, having no idea what she was walking into, about my parents, who would continue funding Marcus's lifestyle with their approval and connections while he robbed people who loved him. I'm sure, I said, but I want to add something to the plan. What? I want to document everything, not just for legal purposes, but for the victims. I want a complete record of what Marcus did and how we stopped him. Something that can help other people recognize this kind of predator before it's too late. Amanda smiled. I like that. A how-to guide for stopping financial predators. More than that, a warning system. Marcus isn't unique. There are probably dozens of people running similar cons on their families and partners. If we can show how to fight back, we'd be doing more than just getting justice for his past victims, Rebecca finished. We'd be protecting future ones. Patricia's voice came through the phone with a note of approval. That's actually brilliant from a legal standpoint. Documentation for educational purposes has much stronger legal protection than documentation for revenge. We spent the rest of the evening refining details. Rebecca would meet with Marcus on Thursday and try to get him to confess to his plans for Jessica. Amanda would contact his business associates and gather evidence of his professional frauds. I would approach my parents on Friday, telling them I'd learned about Marcus's financial difficulties and wanted to help. The anniversary party was Sunday. That gave us 5 days to gather evidence, position our pieces, and prepare for what Amanda was calling the most expensive public service announcement in history. As we wrapped up the call, Rebecca had one final piece of advice. Grace, I know this feels like it's about your brother, but it's bigger than that. Marcus has been using your family's love and trust as weapons against innocent people. When you expose him, you're not just protecting Jessica, you're protecting every family like yours that might be targeted by someone like him. No pressure, I said, trying to lighten the mood. Actually, all the pressure, because people like Marcus count on their family staying quiet. They count on victims being too ashamed to speak up. They count on the system being too slow to stop them. You have the power to break that cycle. After the call ended, I sat in my quiet apartment, looking out at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably planning his next lie, his next manipulation, his next victim. In 4 days, Jessica would walk into a marriage that would destroy her financially and emotionally. But not if I could help it. I opened my laptop and began typing an email to my parents. Mom and Dad, I need to talk to you about Marcus. I've learned some things that I think you should know before the anniversary party. Can we meet for lunch tomorrow? I stared at the email for a long time before hitting send. Once I sent it, there would be no going back. I would either save my family from a predator, or I would destroy what was left of our relationships trying. But as I thought about Rebecca's broken voice and Jessica's trusting smile, The choice became clear. Some things were more important than family harmony. Some fights were worth having. And some people needed to be stopped, no matter the cost. My parents' reaction to lunch was exactly what I'd expected and dreaded. Mom cried, Dad got angry, and both of them immediately started making excuses for Marcus. There has to be some mistake, Mom kept saying, dabbing her eyes with the cloth napkin from Chez Laurent, the upscale French restaurant where I'd chosen to deliver the news. Marcus would never forge Grace's signature. He's not a thief. Helen, let's think about this rationally, Dad said, though his face had gone pale when I showed him the inheritance documents. Grace, where did you get these papers? Are you certain they're authentic? I'd prepared for this. Instead of Amanda's explosive evidence, I'd brought only the bank records showing Marcus's failed businesses and the forged inheritance claim. Enough to establish concern, not enough to overwhelm them with the scope of his crimes. Collection calls? Mom's voice was small. Credit card companies, loan officers, landlords. Marcus has been using our family address as his permanent residence for legal documents. Some of these debts are in default. I watched my parents process this information, their mental image of their golden boy son slowly cracking. Dad's businessman instincts kicked in first. How much debt are we talking about? Close to $900,000. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Other diners continued their conversations around us, unaware that my family's mythology was collapsing at table 12. We have to help him, Mom said finally. He's our son. We can't let him lose everything. Helen, we don't have that kind of money liquid. I do, I interrupted. Both parents stared at me. Dad's expression shifted to something between surprise and skepticism. Grace, honey, I know you want to help, but $900,000? I can cover it. I pulled out my phone and showed them my portfolio summary. I've been more successful than I've let on. Much more successful. Mom's mouth fell open. Dad grabbed the phone, scrolling through the numbers with increasing amazement. Grace, this shows assets of over $3 million. How is this possible? I've been running Wheeler Design Solutions for 8 years. I have corporate clients, investment properties, and a diversified portfolio. I learned early that talking about money in this family led to comparisons and competition. Dad was still staring at my phone. But Marcus always said, he said you were struggling, that you needed help. Marcus has been lying to you about a lot of things. I took back my phone. The question is, what do we do about it?
The conversation that followed lasted 3 hours. My parents oscillated between denial, anger, worry, and confusion. They wanted to confront Marcus immediately. They wanted to pretend I'd never told them. They wanted to solve everything quietly without anyone outside the family knowing. But by the end of lunch, they agreed to my plan. At the anniversary party, I would publicly announce that I was paying off Marcus's debts as a gift to the family. It would save him from financial ruin while establishing the truth about our respective success levels. It's generous, Dad said, though I could see him struggling with the role reversal. But won't this humiliate Marcus? Not as much as bankruptcy court will, I replied. What I didn't tell them was that Marcus had already learned about our lunch meeting. Amanda texted me while I was driving home. He knows. Rebecca says he's panicking. I called her immediately. How does he know? Your dad called him an hour ago. Apparently wanted to give Marcus a chance to explain before Sunday. My heart sank. What did Marcus say? According to Rebecca, who's been monitoring his calls, he went into full damage control mode. Claimed you were lying, that the documents were fake, that you were trying to destroy him out of jealousy. Did my parents believe him? Doesn't matter. The damage is done. Marcus knows you have evidence, and he's mobilizing his defenses. This was confirmed 20 minutes later when Marcus showed up at my apartment building. I watched from my window as he paced back and forth on the sidewalk, talking animatedly on his phone. When he finally buzzed my intercom, his voice was tight with barely controlled rage. Grace, we need to talk. Now. I'm busy, Marcus. I know what you're trying to do, and it won't work. Let me up, or I'll say what I have to say loud enough for your neighbors to hear. I buzzed him in, knowing this confrontation was inevitable. When he reached my floor, Marcus looked haggard in a way I'd never seen before.
His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive shirt wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "You manipulative little bitch," he said the moment I opened the door. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I've told our parents the truth about your financial situation. I'd hardly call that manipulation." He pushed past me into my apartment, looking around with new eyes. For the first time, he seemed to notice the quality of my furniture, the original artwork on the walls, and the view of Lake Michigan from my floor-to-ceiling windows. "This place must cost $5,000 a month," he said, as if seeing it for the first time. "I own the building." His face went white. "You own— How the hell do you own a building?" "I bought it 3 years ago. Good investment." Marcus stared at me like I was a stranger. "Who are you?" "The Grace I know drives a Honda and shops at Target." "The Grace you know is the one you needed me to be. Small, struggling, dependent. It made you feel better about yourself." "That's not—" He stopped, seeming to realize that arguing the point would only confirm it. "Okay, fine. You've been hiding money. Good for you. But these documents you showed Dad, the inheritance stuff, is all real. You forged my signature and stole $75,000 from my grandmother's estate." "I borrowed it. I was planning to pay it back." "With what money? You've been fired from 3 jobs, Marcus. You're driving Uber at night to make rent." His composure cracked completely. "How do you know about—" He caught himself. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're destroying our family over money that I fully intended to repay." "What about David's wedding fund? Were you planning to repay that too? What about the children's hospital donations?" Marcus went very still. "I don't know what you're talking about." $38,000 in corporate donations that never made it to the hospital. Mom still thinks the sponsors backed out. "You're fishing. You don't have proof of any of that." I walked to my desk and pulled out a folder. "Bank records, Marcus. Your deposits match the donation amounts perfectly. Same dates, same amounts." For a moment, I thought he might actually confess. His shoulders sagged and he looked older than his 36 years. But then something hardened in his expression. "You know what? You're right. I took the money. I forged the signatures. I lied about everything." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to something just above a whisper. "But if you think exposing me won't cost you everything, you're stupider than I thought." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise. You want to play hardball? Fine. But I know things about you too, Grace. Things that would shock our precious parents." My blood ran cold. "What things?" "Did you tell them about your little business arrangement with Tony Ritchie? The one where you launder money through your design company?" I felt the floor drop out from under me. Tony Ritchie was a client from 2 years ago, a restaurant owner who'd paid me an unusually large sum for what seemed like simple design work. I'd suspected something wasn't quite right, but the money was good and the work was legitimate design. "I don't launder money." "Tell that to the IRS when they audit you. Tell that to our parents when they learn their successful daughter has been taking mob money." Marcus smiled coldly. "You see, Grace, I'm not the only one with secrets. The difference is, I'm prepared to use mine." "You're bluffing." "Am I? Ask yourself this. Why do you think Tony Ritchie paid you $60,000 to design a website that could have been done for $5,000? Because he liked your work? Or because someone recommended you as a designer who didn't ask too many questions?" My mind raced. The Ritchie job had always bothered me, but I'd convinced myself it was just an eccentric client with too much money. Now Marcus was suggesting something much darker. "Even if that were true, which it isn't, it has nothing to do with your crimes." "Doesn't it? Because when I tell this story, it won't be about my financial mistakes. It'll be about my sister, the money launderer, who tried to frame her honest brother to cover up her own criminal activities." I felt sick. No one will believe that. "Really? Let me paint you a picture. Grace Wheeler, the mysterious sister who hides her wealth, suddenly produces documents supposedly proving her brother's guilt. Documents that just happen to surface right after she gets nervous about a federal investigation into her business practices. Who's the real criminal here?" "You're insane." "I'm practical. See, the beautiful thing about lies is that they don't have to be true to be believed. They just have to be more compelling than the truth. Marcus headed toward the door. So here's how this is going to work. You're going to call our parents and tell them you made a mistake. The documents were forged by someone else, maybe a business competitor trying to hurt our family. You're going to apologize for the confusion. And if I don't?
Then on Sunday, at the anniversary party, I tell everyone about your mob connections, in front of all our parents' friends, their business associates, everyone who matters in their social circle. I tell them how Grace Wheeler built her fortune on dirty money, and when she got scared of getting caught, she tried to frame her own brother. He paused at the door. Your choice, Grace. Protect the family reputation, or watch me destroy yours along with mine. After he left, I sat on my couch, shaking. Marcus had just proven he was even more dangerous than I'd realized. He wasn't just a thief. He was a strategist, someone who planned for contingencies and gathered ammunition against potential threats. My phone rang. Amanda. How did it go? Worse than expected. He's threatening to accuse me of money laundering if I expose him. Based on what? I explained the Tony Ritchie situation. Amanda was quiet for a long time. Grace, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Is there any possibility that your business has been used to launder money without your knowledge? I don't think so, but I've never really investigated my clients that deeply. We need to investigate now, tonight. If Marcus is planning to use this against you, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. What if he's right? What if I am unknowingly involved in something criminal? Then we deal with it. But Grace, don't let him scare you into backing down. This is exactly what predators like Marcus do. They find you vulnerabilities and exploit them. The fact that he's threatening you proves we're on the right track. But if he destroys my reputation, then we destroy him first. Rebecca's meeting with him tomorrow. If he's as panicked as he seems, he might confess to everything on tape. And if he doesn't, Amanda's voice was grim. Then we find another way. Because letting Marcus intimidate us into silence isn't just bad for you, Grace. It's bad for every woman he'll victimize in the future. After the call, I spent the night researching Tony Ritchie, diving deeper into my client records than I'd ever done before. What I found made my stomach churn. The restaurant had closed 6 months after I designed their website. Tony Ritchie had been arrested for tax evasion and suspected money laundering. Marcus might not have been bluffing after all. But as I stared at the evidence of my own potential criminal exposure, I realized something important. I wasn't just fighting for revenge anymore. I wasn't even just fighting for justice. I was fighting for the right to define my own story. Marcus thought he could control the narrative, make me the villain to hide his own crimes. But he'd underestimated something crucial about his quiet little sister. I'd built a business, amassed a fortune, and uncovered his crimes without anyone noticing. If he wanted to play psychological warfare, he was about to learn that I was much better at it than he'd ever imagined. The Oakbrook Country Club had never looked more elegant. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in ivory silk, and the scent of white roses filled the air. 200 guests mingled in their finest attire, celebrating 40 years of my parents' marriage. It should have been a perfect evening. Instead, it felt like the calm before a hurricane. I stood near the bar, watching Marcus work the room with Jessica on his arm. He was performing brilliantly. The devoted son, the successful businessman, the loving fiancé. Every smile looked genuine, every laugh seemed spontaneous. If I hadn't known the truth, I would have been convinced by his act. But I did know the truth, and in 30 minutes, so would everyone else. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Recording complete. He confessed to everything. Jessica's father has been notified. The plan had worked perfectly. Rebecca's meeting with Marcus yesterday had yielded more than we'd hoped for. Desperate to recruit her for his Jessica scheme, Marcus had laid out his entire operation.
The fake consulting business, the plan to drain Jessica's trust fund, even his backup strategy of disappearing to Mexico if things went wrong. All of it captured on a wireless recording device that Rebecca wore like jewelry. "You look nervous." Amanda appeared beside me, elegant in a navy cocktail dress that made her look like any other well-dressed guest. "I feel like I'm about to detonate a bomb." "You are, but sometimes that's the only way to clear out the rot." Across the room, Marcus caught my eye and raised his champagne glass in a mock toast. The gesture was so arrogant, so perfectly him, that it crystallized my resolve. "Ladies and gentlemen," the band leader announced, "Mr. and Mrs. Wheeler would like to say a few words." My parents took the small stage, beaming with happiness. Dad spoke first about love and commitment, followed by Mom's tearful thanks to their family and friends. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. "Before we continue the celebration," Dad said, "our daughter Grace has asked to share something special with all of you." I walked to the stage on unsteady legs, Marcus watching me with barely concealed suspicion. When I reached the microphone, the room fell quiet. "Thank you all for being here tonight. Family means everything to my parents, and it means everything to me." I paused, looking directly at Marcus. Marcus's face went pale, but he maintained his smile. Many of you know Marcus as a successful businessman, and you're absolutely right to admire his ambition. What you might not know is that Marcus has been facing some financial challenges lately. Not because he's failed, but because he's taken risks that didn't pan out. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jessica looked confused, glancing between Marcus and me. As his sister, I couldn't stand by and watch him struggle. So tonight, I'm proud to announce that I've paid off all of Marcus's outstanding debts, nearly $900,000. The room erupted in gasps and applause. Marcus looked like he'd been struck by lightning. I want everyone to know that this doesn't make me a hero. It makes me a sister who loves her family. And Marcus, I want you to know that this comes with no strings attached. You're free to start over, debt-free, with my love and support. More applause. But I wasn't finished. However, there is one condition. The room went quiet again. Family relationships built on lies aren't worth preserving. I pulled out a tablet and connected it to the room's audio system. "Marcus, before I paid your debts, I wanted to understand how you got into this situation, so I did some research." Marcus started moving toward the stage, but Amanda and two men I didn't recognize, Rebecca's friends, according to our plan, blocked his path. What I discovered was that my brother hasn't just been struggling financially, he's been systematically defrauding our family and others for years. The tablet screen came alive on the wall behind me, showing bank records, forged documents, and transfer receipts. The room was dead silent now. Jessica's hand flew to her mouth. But the most disturbing discovery was this.
Marcus's voice filled the room through the sound system. "Jessica's got access to about $2 million in trust funds once we're married. I figure I can drain about half before anyone notices. Rich girls never check the actual numbers." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Guests began talking all at once. Jessica burst into tears. My father stepped toward Marcus, his face dark with rage. "That's not—" Marcus tried to speak, but his voice was drowned out by the crowd. "There's more," I continued. "Marcus has been running these scams for 7 years across multiple states. He was previously married under false pretenses to a woman named Rebecca Torres, whom he defrauded of over $50,000. Rebecca stepped forward from the crowd, no longer hiding. "Hello, Marcus." Marcus's composure shattered completely. "This is insane! Grace is lying. She's trying to frame me because—" "Because what, Marcus?" I interrupted. "Because I'm broke? Because I'm jealous of your success?" I gestured to the evidence displayed on the screen. Everything I've shown tonight is documented fact. Bank records, court filings, recorded conversations. Which of these facts would you like to dispute? "You don't understand," Marcus said desperately, appealing to the crowd. "Grace has been taking money from organized crime. She's a money launderer. She's trying to destroy me to cover up her own crimes." For a moment, the room was silent. Then I smiled. "You're absolutely right, Marcus. I did take money from organized crime.
The crowd gasped. $60,000 from Tony Ritchie, a restaurant owner who was later arrested for money laundering. I took that money unknowingly, and when I discovered the truth, I immediately contacted the FBI. I pulled out an official document. This is a cooperation agreement I signed with federal authorities 3 days ago. I'm helping them trace Tony Ritchie's money laundering network, and in exchange, I've been granted immunity for any unknowing participation. Marcus's face went white as snow. The beautiful thing about telling the truth, Marcus, is that it protects you from people who try to use lies as weapons. The fallout was immediate and complete. Jessica's father, Richard Hartwell, arrived within an hour with his own security team and lawyers. Marcus was escorted from the building before he could cause more disruption. By midnight, federal agents had warrants for his arrest on charges of fraud, identity theft, and wire fraud across state lines. But the most satisfying moment came the next morning. I was having coffee on my balcony when my phone rang. Unknown number. Grace? Marcus's voice was small, defeated. I need help. Where are you? County lockup. They denied bail. He was quiet for a moment. I guess I deserve that. Yes, you do. The lawyers say I'm looking at 5 to 10 years. Federal prison, Grace. My life is over. I felt a stab of something that might have been pity. Marcus, why did you call me? Because you're the only person who might still help me. Everyone else, mom, dad, all our relatives, they won't even take my calls. And you think I should help you because? Because you won, okay? You completely destroyed me. You proved you were smarter, richer, better than me in every way. You got your revenge. Isn't that enough? I was quiet for a long time, watching boats move across Lake Michigan. Marcus, do you know why I really did this? To humiliate me? To show everyone that you were successful and I was a fraud? No, I did it to stop you from hurting Jessica and Rebecca and our parents and every other person you would have victimized if I'd stayed quiet. So you won't help me? I already did help you. I paid off your debts, remember? $900,000. You're financially free, just like I promised. But I'm going to prison. Yes, you are. Because actions have consequences, and you've spent 7 years avoiding yours. There was a long silence. Then Marcus said something that surprised me. I'm sorry, Grace, for everything. For calling you broke, for stealing from the family, for all of it. I know it doesn't matter now, but I am sorry. It does matter. Not enough to change anything, but it matters. Will you visit me in prison? I thought about it. Maybe. After you've served your time and gotten help, if you're genuinely different. And if I'm not, then you'll spend the rest of your life being exactly what you chose to become, a cautionary tale. The call ended, and I sat in the quiet morning processing the strange mix of emotions I felt. Victory, yes. Relief, certainly. But also a profound sadness for the brother I'd lost, or maybe had never really had. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Thank you for saving me. I know this was hard for you. That was followed by one from Rebecca. Marcus pled guilty to all charges. 7 years, no parole. It's over. And finally, one from my mother. Your father and I want to take you to dinner this week. We have a lot to apologize for.
3 months later, I was featured on the cover of Chicago Business Magazine. The article was titled, "The Quiet Millionaire: How Grace Wheeler Built an Empire While Everyone Was Looking the Other Way." The interview focused on my business success, but I made sure to mention the Marcus situation, not for revenge, but as a warning to other families. Financial predators often target the people closest to them, I told the reporter. They count on family loyalty and love to provide cover for their crimes. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to stay silent. The article generated dozens of emails from people who'd experienced similar situations with family members. Some had lost money, others had lost trust. All of them had lost the family members they thought they knew. I started a nonprofit organization, the Wheeler Foundation for Financial Fraud Awareness. We provide resources for families dealing with internal financial crime and support for victims of family-based fraud. It wasn't the career path I'd planned, but it felt right, meaningful in a way that design work never had. Marcus served his 7 years. He was released last month, and to my surprise, he contacted me immediately. "I got your letters," he said when I met him at a coffee shop near his halfway house, "about the foundation, about the people you've helped. I wanted to say thank you." For what? For not giving up on the idea that people can change. He looked older, humbler, fundamentally different from the arrogant man I'd confronted 5 years earlier. I spent a lot of time in prison thinking about the people I hurt, all of them. I can't undo any of it, but I want to try to make amends. How? I want to work with your foundation, help identify warning signs, teach people how predators operate. If my story can prevent someone else from becoming me, maybe that's worth something. I studied his face, looking for traces of the old Marcus, the charm, the manipulation, the calculated sincerity, but all I saw was exhaustion and genuine remorse. "We'll start small," I said finally. "You'll speak at workshops, share your story, help us develop educational materials. But Marcus, I know, one mistake, one hint that I'm using this for my own benefit, and I'm out." More than that, you hurt people with real lives. You don't get to redeem yourself just because you serve time. You earn redemption by making different choices every single day for the rest of your life. He nodded. "I understand." As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us here. 5 years ago, I'd been the family disappointment, the broke little sister who couldn't compete with Golden Boy Marcus. Today, I was a millionaire philanthropist, featured in magazines and invited to speak at conferences. Marcus was an ex-convict living in a halfway house, grateful for the chance to work minimum wage jobs. The roles had completely reversed. But more importantly, the cycle of victimization had ended. Marcus would never again use family bonds as weapons against innocent people. Jessica had married a genuinely successful businessman and started a family. Rebecca had used her settlement money to open her own business. And me? I'd learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to stay quiet about uncomfortable truths. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Miss Wheeler, my brother has been stealing from our family business. I found your foundation online. Can you help?" I smiled and typed back, "Yes, let's talk." The work continued. The fight continued. And somewhere in Chicago, another family predator was about to learn that their victims had found their voice. Some battles are worth fighting, no matter the cost. Some people are worth saving, even from themselves. And sometimes, calling someone broke is the biggest mistake they'll ever make. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.